During the hunt at the enclosure, my younger half-sister was dragged by a mad horse. To save her life, I shot the mad horse dead with an arrow. She wept with gratitude, then turned and cut the tendons in my hands and feet, throwing me into a pit of snakes. Fool, who told you to save me? In a few moments the prince will come to rescue me. You ruined my marriage prospects. I'll let you taste being devoured by 10,000 snakes. Only then did I know she had deliberately provoked the steed to stage a hero saves beauty performance, to marry the prince who commanded great forces. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the day my half-sister was being dragged by the mad horse. I didn't raise my bow that time. Instead I blocked the guard who wanted to go rescue her. If you want to marry so badly, then gamble your life for that outrageous fortune yourself. Miss, quick, save second miss. You're the best archer, shoot the horse, or second miss will die, father's chief guard shouted at me urgently, veins bulging on his forehead. I ignored him and only looked coldly at a short distance where my supposed good sister Su Qingwan was being crazily dragged across the grass by a black steed. Her splendid riding attire had been torn to shreds, expensive hairpins and jewelry scattered on the ground, her carefully styled hair in disarray. Looking like a madwoman, she let out increasingly shrill, terrified screams. Help! Someone save me, Your Highness, save me, as she was being dragged. She kept casting pleading glances toward the men on the distant hunting stand. That man was the prince who commanded great forces and the emperor's most relied upon younger brother, Prince Jing. Xiaoju, the most important role in Su Qingwan's Hero Saves Beauty drama, in my previous life. At that moment I drew my bow, took aim, and released the arrow that killed the mad horse, saving Su Qingwan. But how did she repay me? On the eve of my wedding she smiled and cut the tendons in my hands and feet. Sister, why did you save me? Do you know that your arrow took away the outrageous fortune of me becoming Prince Jing's wife? You ruined my match, I will ruin your life. She had me thrown into a pit of 10,000 snakes. I'll never forget the pain of flesh being torn and bones being gnawed. Su Qingwan, this time I won't save you again. If you want to gamble for that fortune, gamble with your own life. Miss, what are you waiting for? The chief guard, seeing me still motionless, was about to rush forward in his anxiety. I suddenly raised a hand to stop him. My voice was as cold as ice. Don't go. The chief guard froze. Miss, if you all rush forward now, you'll only further spook the horse. If it crashes into a noble, who among you can bear the consequences? I glanced at the hunting stand not far away, where the most honored imperial relatives of the day sat. The guards hesitated instantly. Colliding with a noble could be a capital offense. In that moment of hesitation, a dark figure leaped down from the stand. Prince Jing, Xiaoju, he finally acted. Joy exploded in Su Qingwan's eyes. It worked. She had gambled and won. I watched the triumph in her face and let a barely noticeable cold smile curve my lips. Did you really win your bet? Just as Xiaoju was about to catch up with the mad horse, I seemingly idly flicked a small stone at an unattended horse nearby. The horse was startled, let out a long neigh, and bolted towards Xiaoju and the mad horse. Everything happened in a flash. To avoid the charging horse, Xiaoju's body stuttered. That brief falter caused the horse dragging Su Qingwan to slam her violently into a huge boulder beside them. With a thunderous boom, blood instantly stained the rock. AAA. Su Qingwan let out a scream more piercing than any before, and then fell silent. The mad horse was flung away by the force of the impact and lay twitching until it stopped. The enclosure fell deathly silent. Everyone was stunned by the sudden turn of events. Xiaoju was the first to react. His face darkened as he stepped forward a few paces to check Su Qingwan's breathing. There was still a faint breath. Summon the imperial physician, he commanded, and the scene instantly erupted into chaos. Father and his stepmother tumbled down from the hunting platform, rushing to Su Qingwan's side. Young miss, my dear young miss, the stepmother cried out, her heart tearing apart, as she clung to her blood-soaked daughter. Her poison-tinted eyes glaring fiercely at me. Shenji, why didn't you save her? Your archery was praised by the Duke Protector himself. The 100 step through the yang. Why didn't you shoot an arrow? Were you doing it on purpose? You're jealous of young miss, she screamed at me. As if I were the culprit who had harmed Su Qingwan. In my previous life, it was the same. After I shot the mad horse to save Su Qingwan, she held my hand and thanked me, while taunting me in a half-true, half-sarcastic way. Jia's archery is truly impressive, just a bit too fast. If it were slower, perhaps the prince would have acted, and then our young Mrs. Good Fortune would be even greater. Back then I only thought she was protecting her daughter, speaking nonsense. Only now do I understand that this mother and daughter were rotten to the core from the inside out. I lowered my gaze, my tone calm and steady. Mother, Crazy Horse and my sister were tangled together at the time, and they were too far away. I wasn't completely confident I could hit the horse with one arrow without hurting my sister. If I missed and hurt my sister, who would bear that responsibility? I didn't dare to gamble. My words are reasonable and justified, leaving no flaw. Anyone can nitpick if I don't dare to gamble. I will have cleanly detached myself. My stepmother was choked speechless by me, and could only point at me, trembling with anger. You cold-blooded and ruthless." "Enough," father barked at her in a low, stern voice. He glanced at Su Qingwan, who had been lifted onto a stretcher by the imperial physicians and whose life or death was uncertain, then looked at me, expressionless, his gaze complicated. In the end, his eyes fell on Prince Jing. "Xiao Ju, my daughter has behaved improperly and disturbed your highness. This minister deserves 1,000 deaths." Xiao Ju's gaze, however, passed over his father and fell on me. Those were a pair of bottomless eyes, sharp as an eagle's, as if they could see through a person's heart. "Just now, was it you who stopped the guards?" he asked. His voice was low, betraying no joy or anger. All eyes instantly focused on me. I met his gaze, neither humble nor arrogant. "I did." "Why?" "The guards rushing in would only startle the horses, causing greater chaos and possibly trampling the prince and the nobles on the viewing platform." I paused, then added, "Waiting for the right moment and letting someone capable deliver a decisive strike is the most prudent approach. For example, your highness." I lifted him up high in praise, keeping my own stance exceedingly humble. What I said was the truth, and also the most perfect explanation. Xiao Ju stared at me for a long time. It went on so long I thought he was going to call out my little trick, but then, all of a sudden, he let out a barely audible chuckle. "Minister Su, you've raised a fine daughter, meticulous in thought, unflustered in a crisis." The words fell like a boulder into a tranquil lake. Father and stepmother were both stunned. No one expected that Prince Jing not only didn't blame him, but actually spoke up in praise. The stepmother's face went from green to white, a dazzling display. I dipped my knees slightly in a curtsy, saying nothing, only I knew that the moment I met Xiao Ju's eyes just now, a cold sweat broke out down my back. This man is too perceptive. He must have sensed something. Su Qingwan's injuries were much more severe than she had expected. Her left leg was fractured, 2 ribs were broken, and a long cut had been opened on her face. The imperial physician said that even if it healed, it would inevitably leave a scar. When she woke from her unconsciousness and heard this news, she smashed every object by the bedside that she could smash. "Ah, my face, my leg, Shenji, it's all that bitch's fault. She must be behind this." Her stepmother held her and cried while soothing her. "Wanna, don't be afraid, mother will definitely get justice for you." They were calculating and scheming noisily. Although Su Qingwan was seriously injured, she was ultimately rescued by Prince Jing. This life-saving favor was enough to become an excellent bond between the two. Soon, the rewards from Prince Jing's residence were delivered to our minister's mansion. The finest tonics and rare medicinal ingredients were brought into Su Qingwan's courtyard like a stream. The stepmother beamed with joy, repeating all day long that the prince is benevolent and the prince truly cares for our Wanna. Su Qingwan also temporarily forgot her pain. Lying in bed with a flush on her face, she began to fantasize about the splendor of becoming Prince Jing's consort. They all thought that this great drama, though somewhat rocky in its course, would have a happy ending. Only I knew that this was only the beginning. Someone like Xiao Ju could never be easily moved by a superficial hero saves beauty trap. The things he sent over were nothing more than polite gestures to silence the public. As for me, I began secretly investigating another matter, the crazed horse at the hunting grounds. In my previous life, I never questioned it, but after being reborn, I knew it was anything but an accident. However bold Su Qingwan might be, she wouldn't dare gamble her life on a truly out-of-control mad horse. That horse must have been tampered with. The dosage of the drug and the timing of its onset had all been calculated with precision. I had my personal maid quietly probe into the affairs of the hunting ground stables, using some of the connections my mother left behind. It wasn't several days before the news came back. On the day of the incident, a groom named Li San was in charge of watching that black horse, but afterward he disappeared without a trace. Some said he had taken a sudden windfall and returned to the countryside to marry. I scoffed. A trick to silence someone after killing them, they said, but I discovered something even more interesting. This Li San was a distant relative from my stepmother's family, placed in the stables at my mother's request. Indeed, this was not just Su Qingwan's idea alone. Behind it was the wholehearted support of my dear stepmother. The day after I obtained the evidence, envoys came from Prince Jing's mansion again. This time they did not bring rewards. It was Prince Jing himself who personally paid a visit. The entire minister's residence was in an uproar. My father and stepmother were so excited they nearly knelt to receive him. Su Qingwan struggled to rise from bed, carefully dressed, preparing to welcome the man she loved. However, when Xiaoju entered, he didn't even look at my father, who was excitedly seated in the main chair. His gaze swept the hall and finally fixed on me, quietly drinking tea in the corner. "Today I have come to play a game of chess with Miss Shen," he said. The room fell silent, everyone was stunned. The smile on my stepmother's face froze. Su Qingwan, freshly made up and just brought to the doorway by her maid, heard the words and instantly went as pale as paper. My father was the first to come to his senses, his face full of ingratiating smiles. "The prince is jesting. My daughter is dull-witted. How could she play chess? She would only spoil the prince's refined amusement." As he spoke he gave me a look, urging me to refuse. Su Qingwan's face had gone pale as well. She looked pitiable and began, "Prince, She tried to speak but was cut off by a cold glare from Xiaoju. Xiaoju ignored everyone and simply looked at me, repeating, "Miss Shen, will you honor us with your presence?" His gaze allowed no refusal. I set down my teacup and stood, giving him a slight smile. If the prince commands, how could Shenji disobey? The board was quickly set up in that bustling, scheming hall. Xiaoju took black, I took white. He placed his pieces like gusts of wind, his moves bold and sweeping, aggressive, pressing step by step and giving me no chance to breathe, just like his domineering, forceful manner. I, however, remained calm and steady, responding move for move. He attacked and I defended, he advanced and I retreated. The black and white stones clashed fiercely across the board, and the atmosphere in the hall grew unbearably tense. My father and stepmother stood to one side, not daring to make a sound. Su Qingwan stared fixedly at the board, her eyes full of envy and hatred as if they could burn two holes through me. She couldn't understand why Prince Jing regarded Shenji, the wooden beauty, so differently. After all, she was the one who had been rescued. She was supposed to be the one to receive attention. After the incense stick burned down, I placed the final piece. "Prince, you have lost." A long white dragon severed the sea of black stones, leaving them no way out. Xiaoju stared at the board in silence for a moment, then suddenly let out a low laugh. "Interesting." He lifted his head and looked at me with burning eyes. "Miss Shen's style of play is rather different from the gentle, demure lady the rumors describe." I smiled faintly. "Rumors are mostly not to be trusted." "Indeed," Xiaoju nodded meaningfully. "For example, the rumor says the second Mrs. fall from her horse was an accident, but to me it looked like a carefully planned performance." Boom! The words exploded like thunder in everyone's ears. My stepmother and Su Qingwan's faces immediately drained of color. My father staggered back, looking at his wife and daughter in disbelief. Xiaoju, as if unaware of their reactions, continued slowly, "It's just a pity the actress wasn't professional enough and the props failed. She nearly acted herself to death." Each word struck at the heart, stripping away Su Qingwan's unpresentable schemes and throwing them to the ground to be trampled. Su Qingwan could no longer hold on and burst into tears. "Prince, you've got it wrong, it's not like that, I didn't." My stepmother panicked as well and hurriedly knelt. "Your Highness is discerning. My girl would never be so bold. There must be a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding." Xiao Ju's tone suddenly turned cold. "Then let my men investigate and see whether it is a misunderstanding." No sooner had he finished speaking than two palace guards in flying fish uniforms entered from outside, one of them dragging a man who had been beaten half to death. That man was the missing coachman, Li San. A shock went through me. How fast! My people had only just found a lead, and his men had already brought back a live captive. Li San was thrown to the ground. When he saw his stepmother, he immediately began crying and kowtowing. "Madam, save me, madam, what did I say? I didn't say anything." That cry was tantamount to a confession. The truth lay exposed for all to see. Father trembled with rage, pointed at his second wife. His lips quivering, unable to form a single word, Su Qingwan collapsed completely to the ground. Her face ashen. Everyone believed that this farce was finally over, but I knew the real show was only just beginning. I stood up and walked to stand before Xiao Ju, bowing respectfully. "My lord, in fact, you have also misunderstood." Xiao Ju raised an eyebrow at me, meeting his probing gaze. I slowly opened my mouth. My voice was not loud, but it carried clearly throughout the entire hall. "My younger sister isn't trying to put on a damsel in distress act for a hero to save. She wants your life." 5. As my words fell, the room fell deathly silent. If earlier, when Xiao Ju exposed Su Qingwan's scheme, it was like dropping a boulder, then my words were no different from detonating a volcano. "Nonsense." My stepmother was the first to scream, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "Shenji, what are you up to? How dare you slander your sister for plotting to harm the prince?" Su Qingwan seemed to grasp at the last straw as well. She crawled toward Xiao Ju crying, "Your Highness, don't believe her. She's taking revenge on me. How could I possibly want to harm you? I'm the one pining for you." Father was even more terrified, his spirit scattered. He slapped my face. "Ungrateful daughter, what nonsense are you babbling?" I did not flinch, but that slap never landed. Xiao Ju's hand, swift as lightning, firmly caught his father's wrist. His strength was immense. His father's face twisted in pain in an instant. "Minister Su." Xiao Ju's voice was as cold as ice. "I have not allowed her to finish." He let go, and my father staggered back a few steps, no longer daring to act rashly. Xiao Ju's gaze returned to me, with a hint of inquiry and amusement. "Continue." I composed myself and went on. "That mad horse was indeed drugged, but it wasn't given a violent drug to make it go berserk. It was a strange Western poison that reacts with certain spices. This poison is colorless and tasteless. Mixed into the fodder, a horse will show no abnormalities after eating it, but once it smells that specific spice, the toxin will activate instantly, causing the horse to bleed from all 7 orifices and die in a very short time. And that spice." I paused, my gaze sweeping over Su Qingwan, whose face was growing paler and paler. "In my sister's sachet. This play was supposed to go like this. My sister rides a poisoned horse toward your grace, then accidentally drops the sachet near you. The mad horse's poison takes effect, appearing out of control, yet actually deliberately charges at you, and my sister would happen to be thrown from the horse, away from the center of danger. A crazed horse charging at an unarmed prince who would suspect it's an assassination, they just assume it was an accident, and my younger sister, far from being a suspect, was actually another victim. It's just a pity man's plans can't beat heaven's. The horse struck a rock and died too quickly. Otherwise, if the imperial physician had arrived and opened the horse's belly, he could have detected that strange poison." My voice was clear and logical with each sentence I spoke. Su Qingwan and my stepmother grew paler. In the end, the two of them were ashen-faced, trembling like leaves in the wind, because every word I said was true. It's just that this wasn't something I found out, it was told to me in person in my previous life by Su Qingwan, who wanted revenge on me for ruining her match. How she conspired with others to stage an accident in the hunting grounds to get rid of Prince Jing, Xiao Ju, so that the person behind her could rise to power and she could then, as a meritorious contributor, marry the new Prince Jing, a heroic rescue, an assassination, killing two birds with one stone. How vicious. No, that's not it. Su Qingwan was still making a futile defense. I didn't. My sachet was lost a long time ago. Is that so? I smiled faintly and took a small, exquisite sachet from my sleeve. Is this what you meant, little sister? It was chaotic just now, and I happened to pick it up. At the sight of the sachet, Su Qingwan's eyes flew wide open. And the last trace of color drained from her face. That was her sachet, no doubt. Xiao Ju's guard stepped forward, took the sachet, and presented it. Xiao Ju didn't even open it to smell. With just one glance, his eyes turned completely cold. He looked at Su Qingwan, his gaze as if he were looking at a dead person. Okay, what a fine second young lady of the Su family. He slowly rose to his feet, looking down from above at the mother and daughter collapsed on the ground, plotting to harm a member of the imperial clan, attempting to assassinate a prince. Minister Su, tell me yourself, what crime should that be? Father fell to his knees with a thud, cold sweat soaking through his court robes. Spare me, Your Highness, spare me, Your Highness. I have failed to discipline my daughter. I am guilty. But this matter I truly knew nothing about. He kowtowed frantically, wishing he could strangle the mother and daughter who had brought about this enormous disaster on the spot. The stepmother and Su Qingwan finally realized that everything had been completely exposed, with no room left to salvage it. They cried and begged for mercy, disgracing themselves utterly. I watched it all with cold eyes, not a ripple stirring in my heart. The suffering I endured in my past life today is merely collecting a little interest from them. Xiao Ju didn't spare them another glance and turned to leave. Attend me, throw everyone from the Su family into the sky prison and await His Majesty's judgment. The icy voice pronounced the Su family's death sentence. The guards surged in like wolves and tigers. The stepmother and Su Qingwan's cries for mercy turned into terrified screams. Just when I thought everything was about to be settled, Xiao Ju reached the doorway, suddenly stopped, and glanced back at me. Miss Shen, you come with this prince. 6. The royal carriage of the King Jing's mansion is so quiet that one can hear the wheels rolling over the blue-gray stone road. I sit opposite Xiao Ju. The space is cramped, and the aura on his body, mixed with dragon saliva incense and a faint bloody scent, pervades every corner, pressing down on me with great oppression. He doesn't speak, only a pair of deep eyes gaze at me intently, as if trying to see through me. I felt a bit ill at ease under his gaze and was the first to break the silence. Why does Your Highness want to take me away? The entire Su family has been imprisoned. As a daughter of the Su family, I should share their guilt. Xiao Ju's lips curved into a mocking arc. A Su family woman, if you truly saw yourself as a Su family woman, you wouldn't have, here in the main hall today, personally pushed the Su family into eternal damnation. His words struck right at the heart. A chill ran through me, but my expression remained calm. I was just telling the truth. Truth. Xiao Ju gave a light laugh. Shenji, do you take me for a fool? That exotic poison from the western regions, even the imperial court physicians might not recognize it. How would you, a Shongshu's daughter raised in deep seclusion, know of it? The time and place you found the sachet are far too coincidental. And also, your motive for exposing Su Qingwan, was it really for me? With each question he asked, he closed in on me a little more, his overwhelming presence pressing down until I could barely breathe. I clenched the hand hidden in my sleeve, my nails digging deep into my palm. Rebirth is my greatest secret, and I must never let him know. I must give him a reasonable explanation, one that will convince him. I opened my mouth, my mind racing. Just then, a clamor rose from outside the carriage. Assassins, protect His Highness. Before the words had even fallen, several sharp arrows whistled through the carriage wall and shot inside. One arrow came straight for my face. My pupils contracted sharply. There was no time to dodge at all. The next second, a tremendous force yanked me away. I crashed headlong into a hard, searing chest, my nose filled with the strong scent of his masculinity. Sit properly. Xiao Ju's deep voice sounded above my head. He pressed me into his arms with one hand, while the other had already drawn the soft sword at his waist. With a crisp clatter of ding-ding-dang-dang, The arrows shooting into the carriage were all cut down by him. The fighting outside grew ever fiercer. The clash of blades and the sound of flesh being cleaved were clearly discernible. The carriage jolted violently, as if it might fall apart at any moment. I was tightly confined in Xiao Ju's arms, unable to move. His chest burned like a branding iron, and through him I could clearly feel the brutality of the battle outside. In 2 lifetimes, this is the first time I have come so close to death. In my past life in the snake pit, it was a hopeless, slow torture. Now, it is a swift, bloody fight. I don't know how long had passed before the sounds outside gradually subsided, and the carriage came to a stop. Your Highness, the assassins have all been eliminated, the captain of the guards spoke, carrying a trace of fatigue and the scent of blood. Xiao Ju finally let me go. I hurriedly stepped back from his embrace, tidied my disheveled clothes, and my cheeks felt somewhat hot. He looked as calm as ever, only glancing at me faintly. It seems someone doesn't want anyone from the Su family to walk alive into the celestial prison. My heart skipped a beat. To mobilize so many suicidal assassins to attack a prince on the capital's streets. Whoever is behind Su Qingwan certainly wields considerable power. Aren't you curious who it is, Your Grace? I asked. Xiao Ju sat back down, deliberately wiping the bloodstains from the blade. Not curious, because I know who it is. He lifted his gaze to me, eyes sharp as a blade. Now, it's your turn, Shenji. You still haven't answered my question. Whose person are you, really? The topic circled back to the starting point, and it was even more dangerous than before. After this assassination attempt, he'll only be more suspicious of me. I took a deep breath, knowing that if I couldn't give him a satisfactory answer today, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to walk out of this carriage. I lifted my head, looked straight into his eyes, and spoke word by word. Do you still remember the name Wang Lingxi, Your Highness? Wang Lingxi. At the sound of those 3 characters, Xiao Ju's hand cleaning the sword blade suddenly froze. He looked up, and for the first time there was shock in his eyes, along with a faint, barely perceptible pain. How do you know that name? His voice was a little hoarse. Wang Lingxi was my mother's given name and a taboo sealed away by the capital's great families for more than a decade. My mother had once been the only legitimate daughter of the Dingwa Duke's household, the brightest pearl of the capital. She and the current sovereign, and the Prince Jing before me, Xiao Ju, grew up together as childhood sweethearts. It was rumored the late emperor intended to grant her in marriage to Xiao Ju while he was still a prince, but for some unknown reason she suddenly married my father Shen Jing, who at the time was only a 6th-rank minor official. From then the pearl was dimmed. A few years later she died in grief, and the name Wang Lingxi gradually faded from people's memories. Watching Xiao Ju's reaction, I knew my gamble had paid off. I don't just know her name, I took from my neck the pendant I wore close to my body, a piece of very fine warm jade, carved with a lifelike tsigu flower. I also know this pendant was the birthday gift you once gave my mother. Xiao Ju's gaze was fixed on the pendant. His hand reached out uncontrollably, his fingertips trembling slightly, wanting to touch it but then withdrawing. Aki, he murmured, lost, saying the nickname that belonged only to him. In that moment he was no longer the decisive, ruthless Prince Jing who ruled the court with power, but an ordinary man remembering someone he had lost. My chest tightened with bitterness. So he had never forgotten my mother. In my previous life I had been blinded by lard, my heart and eyes full of a hypocritical fiancé, never once probing my mother's past. Only after death, when I became a lingering spirit drifting through the Prince Jing's residence, did I see that every year on my mother's death anniversary he would sit alone in his study and drink himself senseless before her portrait. Only then did I learn of the depth of their past. My mother did not die of illness. I put the pendant away, my voice choked with sobs and hatred. She was murdered, poisoned slowly by a chronic toxin that drained her life bit by bit. The one who poisoned her was my stepmother, Lady Liu, and the person who ordered it, I lifted my eyes to Xiao Ju, was the current empress. Xiao Ju's pupils contracted sharply. The aura around him instantly turned cold and dangerous. What evidence do you have? In the hidden compartment my mother left. There is her diary. recording the steady deterioration of her health and her suspicions about Lady Liu and the nanny the Empress sent. The diary, which should have been given to my father, was hidden by Lady Liu. I stumbled upon it by accident. As for the exotic poison from the western regions and the sachet secret, they were discovered in a scrap of paper within the diary. It was something my mother had overheard the Empress talking about with a Western merchant years ago. She thought it important and wrote it down. I told the half-true, half-false story slowly. The diary was real, but it was not I who had found it myself. In my previous life Su Qingwan had deliberately shown it to me to destroy me. She wanted me to know that neither my mother nor I could stand against her and her mother the Empress. That my mother and I were failures. Xiao Ju was silent, watching me quietly, his expression inscrutable as if weighing truth from falsehood. After a long while he spoke slowly. So you did all this to avenge your mother? Yes, I answered without hesitation. Toppling the Su family is only the first step. My ultimate target is the Empress. After I spoke, I waited quietly for his response. Laying my greatest secret bare before him was a high-stakes gamble, betting on his old feelings for his mother, betting on his enmity with the Empress faction, betting that he would choose to cooperate with me. The carriage fell into silence again. After who knew how long, Xiao Ju suddenly reached out his hand to me. The jade pendant. Let this prince see it. I hesitated for a moment, then placed the warm jade in his palm. He ran his fingertip gently over his eyes full of emotions I could not read. Shenji, he suddenly called my name. From today on, you will live in the Jing Prince's mansion. I will protect you. I moved into the Jing Prince's Tingzhu garden, a quiet little courtyard. When the news spread, the whole capital exploded. The Su family had just been implicated in an assassination attempt on a prince. The Su daughter thrown into the imperial prison now turned around and moved into the house of her victim. The Jing Prince. What kind of thing was this? Rumors erupted everywhere. Some said the Jing Prince had been bewitched by my beauty and was enacting a real-life a crown lost in anger for a beauty. Some said I, a convicted woman, was being detained in the prince's residence, nominally for protection, but actually under surveillance. Others claimed I had long been secretly involved with the Jing Prince and that the Su affair was a trap we had set together. I ignored all the outside clamor. I was waiting for Xiao Ju's next move, and waiting for the Empress' reaction. The Su family had fallen. The Empress had lost one of her arms in court. With Su Qingwan's important pawn ruined, she would not let this go. Sure enough, within 3 days someone arrived from the palace, Qin Gugu, the most favored stewardess beside the Empress. She carried the Empress' imperial decree, ostensibly to visit but really to apply pressure. Miss Shen, Her Majesty the Empress heard you were frightened and specially sent me to see you, Qin Gugu said, sitting opposite me with a formulaic smile while her eyes slashed over me like knives. The Empress says Minister Su is muddled and has committed a grave error. But you, Miss Shen, are innocent. If you do not feel comfortable living in the prince's mansion, why not come into the palace with me? Her Majesty will personally look after you and find you a good match, which would settle one worry. A pretty offer of looking after and finding a good match. It was a blatant threat. If I entered the palace and fell into her hands, would my life or death not be at her whim? I lowered my lashes, lifted the teacup and blew lightly on the steam above it. Please extend my thanks to Her Majesty for her concern, but His Highness the Jing Prince treats me very well. I am quite comfortable living here. The practiced smile on Qin Gugu's face faded. Miss Shen, you must think clearly. The Jing Prince's mansion may be pleasant, but it is not your home. A young unmarried woman lodging in another man's household will not sit well with public opinion, and the prince, busy with state affairs, cannot always watch over you. If another assassin like the last one appears, she let the threat hang in the air. The implication sharpened. I set down my cup and looked up at her with a smile. Qin Gugu is right about that. But you may not know that the prince has moved his personal guards into my Tingzhu garden to protect me. He said that whoever dares lay a hand on a hair of mine will have their whole family buried with them. I spoke while watching Qin Gugu's face. It stiffened exactly as I expected. I leisurely raised the stakes. The prince also said he will thoroughly investigate the death of my mother back then. Whoever is involved, he will show No mercy. Oh, by the way, my mother's maiden name was Wang Lingxi, do you remember? Qin Gugu. With a bang, the teacup at Qin Gugu's hand hit the floor and shattered. She drained of color. The name Wang Lingxi was a nightmare for her as well. It was she who, in the guise of a nurse, entered the Shun household and personally delivered those poisons into my mother's meals day after day. She looked at me, her eyes full of terror and disbelief, as if staring at a demon clawing its way out of hell. You, she pointed at me, but could not utter another word. I stood up and walked over to her, bent down, and whispered in a voice only the two of us could hear, Aunt Qin, guess what? If I tell Wang Ye about your matters, how much worse would your fate be than the people from the Su family condemned in the heavenly prison? Aunt Qin grew faint, slumped into the chair, cold sweat pouring down from her temples. I straightened up and restored my gentle, harmless demeanor. Aunt Qin, it's getting late. You should return to the palace and report. Please send my regards to Empress Dowager and say that Shen Jiyun is well. Aunt Qin left Jing Wang's residence in a daze, traumatized. I knew my words were like a poisonous sting, deeply piercing her and the Empress's hearts. They would be afraid, and would want to remove me even more desperately. That night, Xiao Ju came to Tingzhu Garden to listen. He brought a message. Su Jing has confessed in the heavenly prison. I was not surprised. My father was greedy for life and fear of death. Without an ounce of backbone, capable of anything to stay alive, what did he confess? He confessed that Liu She has long been using him to pass to her elder brother, the current Minister of Personnel, Liu Chengshu, the handles and secrets that control officials in the court. Liu Cheng is the Empress's man. Xiao Ju looked at me with a deep gaze. Su Jing also said that back then, the death of your mother, Liu She once boasted to him that it was planned by the Empress herself, because your mother knew a secret of the Empress that was enormous. What secret? I asked, chasing after it. Xiao Ju paused for a moment. Back then, when the former emperor was gravely ill, a will had been made designating my succession. It was the Empress who, together with the Liu family, swapped the will, allowing the current holy monarch to ascend smoothly. My heart jolted. A forged succession edict. This was a scandal big enough to overturn the entire imperial family. No wonder the Empress tried to annihilate my mother, and no wonder His Majesty, after ascending the throne, both relied on Xiao Ju and treated him with constant caution. So this throne was supposed to be Xiao Ju's. Who else knew this secret besides your mother, the duke who secured the realm, that is, your maternal grandfather? Xiao Ju's voice was low. At that time the duke who secured the realm held military power and was the father emperor's most trusted general. He personally watched the late emperor write the succession edict, but on the night before the father emperor passed, he suddenly received urgent news that the northern border had been attacked by barbarians. He was ordered to ride through the night to assist the north, and when the unrest was quelled and he returned, the new emperor had already ascended. He knew something was amiss, but lacked evidence. To protect the entire Dingwa duke's household, he had no choice but to relinquish military power, retire to his hometown, and thereafter take no part in state affairs. I finally understood everything connected now: my mother's death, my maternal grandfather's retreat, Xiao Ju's forbearance, the Empress's malice. A vast net hung over everyone's heads, and I stood at its center. What do you intend to do? I asked Xiao Ju. He looked at me, a flicker of approval in his eyes. I did not ask whether he wanted to seize the throne back. I asked outright what he planned to do, which proved I understood him. The time has not yet come, Xiao Ju said slowly. Though the imperial brother is suspicious, he is not a tyrant. Over the years he has balanced the court and worked diligently. He has been a decent emperor. The Empress and Liu are the real cancer. What I intend is not to overthrow him, but to help him cut out that cancer. I understand. What Xiao Ju wants is not the throne, but to avenge my mother, himself, and those who were wronged. He wants to purge the court. What can I do to help? I looked at him. My gaze steady. Xiao looked at me deeply, then suddenly smiled. You have already helped me a great deal. Now you only need to stay at the Prince of Jing's residence and be the most perfect pawn, a pawn that can throw the Empress into disarray. He rose to leave, walked to the door, then paused. By the way, there is something you might want to see. He took a letter from his bosom and handed it to me. The envelope had yellowed and bore no signature. I opened it in confusion, and after a single look, tears streamed uncontrollably from my eyes. It was my mother's handwriting. The letter began with only 3 words: to my son, Shenji, 10, my child, my daughter. By the time you read this letter, your mother may no longer be alive. Please forgive my selfishness for not being able to raise you. But there are things I must do. The Shen family is a quagmire. Your father is weak and incompetent. Your stepmother is venomous. If I do not leave, you will never have peace. I have laid out 3 paths for you. First, I have transferred all my property into the name of your maternal grandfather, the Duke Dingwa. If one day you cannot stay in the Shen household, you can go to your grandfather. He will protect you for life. Second, I have arranged a marriage for you with the son of the Vice Minister of Revenue, a man of honest character and a family of upright conduct. If you wish for a stable life, this would be a good match. Third, your mother's handwriting on the paper paused, seeming to hesitate for a long time. If there is resentment in your heart, if you want to seek justice for me, then go find one person, Prince Jing, Xiaoju. Give him the Cigu jade pendant I left you. He will understand everything. But Jia, this path is the most perilous. 9 deaths for 1 life. Mother does not want you to take it. Mother only wishes you a lifetime of peace and joy, free from worry. The last thing on the letter was a tear mark that had already dried. I clutched that letter and sobbed until I could hardly speak. It turned out none of it was accidental. Every step I took was anticipated by my mother. She had never abandoned me. She protected me and paved the way for me in her own way. In my previous life I chose the second path, eagerly waiting to marry that upright son of the Minister of Revenue. But I didn't know that family had long since colluded with Su Qingwan under my stepmother's threats and inducements. They set a trap to ruin my reputation and forced me to break the engagement. The man I thought virtuous was merely another abyss in this life. By a twist of fate I ended up taking the third path. I found Xiaoju. I became a pawn in his hands and the most crucial piece in my mother's revenge plan. This letter was given to the prince by Su Jing. Xiaoju said from behind me, having returned at some unknown time, his voice low. He said it was dug up from Lady Liu's belongings after your mother's death. Lady Liu couldn't understand its deeper meaning and treated it as an ordinary family letter to be tossed aside. But Su Jing secretly hid it. He wants to trade this letter for a way out for you. I wiped my tears, carefully folded the sheet of paper, and tucked it close to my body. He's overthinking it. My voice was cold as ice. No one from the Su family will survive. Xiaoju fell silent, watching me for a long moment before speaking. I have already sent men to deliver a message to the Duke of Dingwa's residence. Count the days. Your maternal grandfather should be arriving in the capital soon. Maternal grandfather, this phrase was both familiar and strange to me. After my mother died, I never saw him again. I only heard that he had kept vigil for my mother at the border manor. Now he was coming back. For me and for the truth of what happened back then. Your Majesty, will she make a move? I asked. She will be more desperate than we are. A cold light flashed in Xiaoju's eyes. If the switch of the will is exposed, it won't only be her, the entire Liu family. Even the crown prince will meet ruin, so she will surely act before we do. What will she do? Silence them. Xiaoju enunciated each word. Everyone who knows the secret must die. The first will be the duke who pacified the nation. My heart tightened sharply. She would dare attempt an assassination in the capital on a duke who's retired to his hometown. She wouldn't, but someone would. Xiaoju looked toward the night outside. Thick as ink, for example, a fanatic disguised as a barbarian bandit, or an accident like a sudden flood at a relay station, or an outbreak of sickness. To protect the secret, she will stop at nothing. My heart sank. The road ahead was far more perilous than I had imagined. Don't be afraid. As if sensing my anxiety, Xiaoju suddenly spoke. His voice was unusually steady in the quiet night. With me here, my maternal grandfather's return to the capital was indeed not peaceful. First they ran into mountain bandits, and nearly half the palace guards escorting him were lost. Then the relay station caught fire, almost burning the whole station to ashes. Fortunately, Xiao Ju had planned ahead and sent undercover guards to meet them, so my grandfather arrived in the capital with his life intact. The day I saw him it was overcast. He was far older than I had imagined, his hair all white, his face lined with hardships, yet his eyes remained sharp as an eagle's, commanding without anger. He stood in simple cloth at the gate of Prince Jing's residence. The moment he saw me, the old general who had bled on battlefields but never wept, his eyes suddenly reddened, so much like her. He reached out with hands calloused from age, attempting to touch my face, then stopped midair. "Good child, I've let you suffer." I could no longer hold back and knelt before him. "Grandfather," 1,000 words condensed into that one cry. He helped me up and brought me into the residence. Xiao Ju was already waiting in the hall. The three of us sat. There was no idle talk, and they went straight to the point. "Duke, how much do you remember of what happened back then?" Xiao Ju asked. My grandfather nodded and took from his bosom a small wooden box wrapped in oilcloth layers. "Before the late emperor passed, he secretly summoned me to the palace. Knowing his days were few, he personally wrote the will of succession in my presence, naming his seventh son Xiao Ju as the new sovereign. The will was made in 2 copies, one hidden behind the Zhengda Guangming plaque in the Qianqing Palace, the other entrusted to my care." My maternal grandfather opened the wooden box. Inside was a roll of bright yellow parchment, a testament of succession. Xiao Ju and I were both stunned. We had assumed the original testament had long since been swapped, destroyed, and wiped from existence. We never expected my grandfather to still be holding an authentic copy. "Then why back then?" Xiao Ju's voice trembled. "Why didn't I produce it at the time?" Grandfather sighed. "I would have if I could. Just after I received the will, I was issued an imperial edict ordering me to leave the capital at once to aid the northern border. I knew the journey would be perilous and that something major was unfolding in the capital. So I hid the will in the most secret chamber of the residence and told my trusted men that if anything happened to me they were to destroy it. I could not gamble with the lives of the entire Duke Dinggua's household. When I returned, everything had been decided. The new emperor had been enthroned. The empress was governing in his stead. Had I produced the will then, it would have been deemed treason. It would not have saved you. Instead it would have plunged the realm into chaos and brought suffering on the people. So, I can only endure it, surrender command of the troops and retire only to wait for an opportunity." Grandmother looked steadily at Xiao Ju, her gaze resolute. "Now, the time has come. With this will, it was like holding the most lethal weapon. The empress and the Liu family's crimes could no longer be denied. What should we do?" When Dao Wen asked. "Wait." Xiao Ju's eyes glittered with calculation. "Wait for the best moment that will bring this will before the whole world." "What moment, elder brother?" "The Longevity Festival. The Longevity Festival, a time of universal celebration. Envoys from all nations, civil and military officials would all gather together to reveal the imperial family's greatest scandal publicly on such an occasion. The consequences would be unimaginable." "That's way too risky," I blurted out. "No breaking without standing." Xiao Ju looked at me. "Shenji, you must use the strongest medicine. Don't worry, I won't embarrass the imperial brother. What I want is only a truth, a fair outcome." I gazed at his confident and determined eyes, and the unease in my heart gradually calmed. This man always thinks deeper and farther than I do. The plan advances in secrecy in an orderly manner, and I received a new mission, a task even Xiao Ju considers too dangerous for me. "You're going to see the crown prince." I looked at him and nodded. Consort Tai is both the empress's soft spot and her greatest support. My intention was to make her lose that support. "What do you plan to do?" "I will tell the crown prince that he is not the empress's biological son. The crown prince Xiao Wen was the empress's legitimate son and her only child. The empress pinned high hopes on him and cherished him like a treasure. The crown prince himself was courteous, filial, kind, and generous, and had an excellent reputation both at court and among the people. No one would doubt this model of a loving mother and dutiful son except me. In my previous life, Su Qingwan once spoke carelessly while drunk and let slip, "Do you think the empress values me for any other reason? It's only because my blood can save her son's life." At the Time I didn't understand, only after being reborn did I piece everything together. The crown prince was frail and suffered from a peculiar blood disease that required rare medicinal materials to nurture him year-round. By coincidence, Su Qingwan had an exceedingly rare blood type that matched his. This was the real reason the empress chose the Su family and promoted the Liu clan. Su Qingwan was the crown prince's spare blood bank. What kind of mother would need another woman to be her son's blood bank, unless she herself was incapable, or she wasn't the crown prince's birth mother at all? I told Xiao Ju and my maternal grandfather my suspicions, and they were both stunned. How is that possible? My grandfather couldn't believe it. If that's true, who would be the crown prince's birth mother? Xiao Ju knit his brows. I shook my head. I don't know, but that doesn't matter. What matters is making the crown prince believe it. I will see him in person. Xiao Ju resolutely refused. No, it's too dangerous. The empress has planted countless spies around the crown prince. If you reveal yourself, you'll be walking into a trap. How can one catch tiger cubs without entering the tiger's den? I looked at him, my gaze firmer than ever. This is our only chance. On the day of the WN Show Festival, we will not only expose the truth of the posthumous edict, but also force the crown prince to come forward and denounce the empress's crimes. Only then will she never have a day to recover. Xiao Ju fell silent. He knew I was right. This is a desperate plan that drains the source of the problem, yet it is also the most effective tactic. After a long while, he hard-cindedly nodded. I'll take care of it. The meeting with the crown prince was arranged at a royal villa on the outskirts of the capital that day. The crown prince used the pretext of prayer to stay here for a short time. I pretended to be a palace maid delivering meals and met him in his study. He was even gentler than I had imagined, with delicate features and a scholarly bearing. When he saw me, he smiled kindly and said, "Thank you for your trouble. It's hard to imagine such a refined gentleman would be the son of that poisonous woman." I didn't beat around the bush. I went straight to the point. Your Highness the Crown Prince, I came today to tell you a secret about your birth. Xiao Wen froze, then couldn't help but laugh. Miss, you're joking. My lineage is known to all under heaven. Is that so? I took a yellowed medical record from my sleeve. This is the Royal Medical Bureau's file from the year you were born. It clearly records that the Empress suffered massive hemorrhaging during childbirth and damaged her reproductive organs. She could hardly conceive again in this lifetime. And you were only carried out of the palace and registered under her name after she had recovered for a whole year. Your Highness, aren't you curious where you spent the first year after you were born? The smile on Xiao Wen's face gradually disappeared. He took the medical record, looked at the familiar seal of the Imperial Medical Office, and his hand began to tremble slightly. Who are you? Where did you get this? It doesn't matter who I am, I said, looking directly into his eyes. What matters is whether your Highness wants to know who your biological mother is. She was imprisoned by the Empress for 10 years in order to give birth to you. In the end, she met a tragic death in a fire in the cold palace. Every year on your birthday is the anniversary of her death. My words were like daggers, stabbing viciously into Xiao Wen's heart. His face turned deathly pale, and he swayed on his feet. No, impossible. Mother, she wouldn't do this to me. Is that so? I sneered. Does your Highness know why Miss Su Qing, the second miss of the Su family, won the Empress's favor? Because hers can save your life. A mother who needs someone else's blood to save even her own biological son. Tell me, how much of her feeling for you is real, and how much is false? Her love has never been for someone like you, but rather, the identity of Crown Prince. It's the future throne. Xiao Wen collapsed completely. He slumped into a chair, eyes vacant, muttering to himself, I know now. The seed of doubt has already been sown. All that's left is to wait for it to take root and sprout. The longevity festival arrived as scheduled. In the resplendent hall, music and dance filled the air, and the Empress sat beside the Emperor, graceful as ever while accepting the court officials' homage. Just at the height of the festivities, the Duke who stabilizes the state, clad in heavy mourning, carried the testament of succession in both hands and stepped up to the hall. The whole court was aghast. Immediately after, Crown Prince Xiao Wen also came forward, fell to his knees, and tearfully presented a blood letter. Every character on the blood-written document seemed to weep blood, accusing the empress of swapping imperial sons, persecuting palace concubines, and plotting treason, crimes of unimaginable magnitude. The two pieces of evidence struck like twin thunderbolts, blasting the entire hall into chaos. The emperor looked at the testament, then at the empress's ashen face, and at his son kneeling and weeping on the ground. His aged face revealed no expression. After a long while, he wearily waved his hand. The empress has lost virtue. She is to be confined to the cunning palace, and shall not leave without an imperial edict. Liu, execute the whole family. Tai, close the gates and reflect on your sins. Those few light words brought a 2-decade-long conspiracy to an end. No deposition, no ordered death for the empress. This might be a punishment more painful than death. 3 months. I stood on the city tower, watching Xiao Ju clad in armor, about to lead troops to the northern border. He had pacified the court and purged the treacherous, yet on the eve the emperor announced him as heir apparent. He petitioned to go to the frontier. He returned the position that should have been his to his cowardly elder brother who had been that way his whole life. "You're not waiting for me to come back?" he asked. I shook my head and handed a tiger tally into his hand. It was the military token of the Duke of stabilizing the state left by my maternal grandfather. "It's mine now, take care of it. I want to walk the rest of the way myself." I wanted to see the Duke of stabilizing the state residence where my mother once lived, to walk the northern grasslands she once walked. Xiao Ju took the tiger tally, looked at me deeply, and did not persuade me further. "All right," he said, only one word, "I'll wait for you." He turned, swung up into the saddle, his dark cloak snapped in the wind. The army set out. I stood on the city tower, watching his figure vanish into the swirling sand. After a long while I turned and walked down from the tower. The capital's splendor had nothing to do with me. The grievances of my past life were already settled. In this life, I was no one's daughter, no one's pawn. I was simply Shinji, and my future lay beyond.